The stars looked different from Haven. Elder Jack Stone stood at the observation deck, his weathered hands gripping the railing as he gazed at the unfamiliar constellations. At 93, he was one of the few remaining who carried the memory of Earth in his blood, though he himself had never seen humanity's birthplace. His grandfather had been among the last to escape. Telling stories to the void again, Elder? Commander Tom Reed approached quietly, his uniform crisp despite the late hour. Jack smiled without turning. Not stories. Promises. The colony of Haven thrived in a valley surrounded by towering purple mountains. From this height, Jack could see the lights of the city below, a testament to human resilience. What had begun as a desperate outpost of 10,000 survivors had grown into a civilization of millions spread across 3 continents. The council meets at dawn, Tom said. Dr. Miller says she's found something. Jack nodded. Then we shouldn't keep her waiting. The meeting chamber buzzed with tension. 12 leaders sat around a circular table, with Dr. Ann Miller standing at the center. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, her eyes bright with excitement. For 30 years, we've been excavating the ruins on the southern continent, she began, activating the holographic display. We always assumed they belonged to Haven's original inhabitants, extinct long before our arrival. We were wrong. The hologram showed a metal vault door, massive, and clearly not of local design. This technology matches nothing in our records, or in Haven's archaeological history, she continued. 3 days ago we opened it. The image changed to show a vast chamber filled with rows of preserved technology. This is a forward base, Anne said, her voice steady but her hands trembling. Slightly. Built by humans from Earth nearly 10,000 years ago. Gasps filled the room. Commander Reed leaned forward. That's impossible. Our history clearly records that Earth was destroyed by an asteroid impact. The evacuation was chaotic. We barely escaped with basic technology. That's what we were told, Anne agreed. But the evidence suggests otherwise. She tapped her console, and new images appeared. Strange ships with weapons pointed at a blue-green planet. These records were preserved inside. Earth wasn't destroyed by a natural disaster. It was attacked and deliberately obliterated by something called the Galactic Council. Silence gripped the chamber. Elder Stone's voice cut through the quiet. My grandfather used to tell me stories passed down through generations. Stories about betrayal, about aliens who feared us, about a promise of return. I always thought they were myths to help children sleep at night. Anne nodded. There's more. The base contains technological blueprints far beyond what we currently possess. It seems our ancestors weren't just refugees. They were preparing. Preparing for what? One of the council members asked. For us, Tom said quietly, understanding dawning on his face. They were preparing for the day when their descendants would be strong enough to return. 3 days later, Commander Reed stood in the ancient vault watching as technicians carefully extracted another piece of equipment from stasis. How much of this can we actually use? He asked Anne, who was cataloging discoveries on her tablet. Most of it is still functional, she replied. The preservation systems were remarkable, but more importantly, we've discovered their research. Our ancestors were developing technologies the Council had forbidden, faster than light travel, energy weapons, even matter manipulation. They feared what humans might become. Tom ran his hand along a metal container marked with Earth's old symbol, and their fear drove them to genocide. Yes, Anne said, but they missed some of us, and now, 9,000 years later, we've advanced far beyond what they could imagine. A young technician approached them carrying a small device. Dr. Miller, we found this in the command center. It seems to be an activation key. Anne took it carefully, examining the intricate patterns etched into the metal. Bring it to the main computer room. The computer core of the ancient base hummed to life, screens illuminating for the first time in millennia. Elder Stone watched. As Anne inserted the activation key, the screens flickered and then a face appeared. A woman wearing an old Earth military uniform, her eyes tired but determined. This is Admiral Helena Stone of Earth Defense Force, final message. The woman's voice echoed through the chamber. If you're seeing this, you are our descendants and you found one of our forward bases. Earth is lost. The Galactic Council voted for our extinction, fearing our potential and our rapid advancement. They could not control us, so they destroyed us. Jack felt his heart race. Helena Stone, his ancestor, his blood. We managed to save some of our people. The recording continued. Scattered across the stars, hidden from the Council's sight. We've seeded bases like this one throughout unexplored space, each containing the knowledge and technology they tried to erase. They think humanity is extinct. Let them keep thinking that. The Admiral's expression hardened. But know this, we do not forgive, and we do not forget. Within this base is everything you need to rebuild, to advance, and one day, to return. When you are ready, when you are strong, reclaim what was taken from us. Bring fire to those who sought our extinction. The message ended, leaving them in stunned silence. My grandfather always ended his stories the same way, Jack finally said, his voice thick with emotion. From the ashes we will rise, and we will return with fire. Now I understand what he meant. 6 months later, Commander Reed stood on the bridge of the Haven's first interstellar warship, the Phoenix. Below, in the massive underground hangar, 5 more ships were nearing completion, built with the knowledge from the ancient base. Navigation systems online, reported the young officer at the controls. Stealth technology functioning at optimal levels. Tom nodded. And the special package? Secure in the hold, sir. Dr. Miller says the fire protocol is ready for deployment, if needed. Elder Jack Stone entered the bridge, moving slowly but with purpose. In his hands he carried a small metal container. A gift for your journey, he said, presenting it to Tom. Earth soil, passed down through my family for 9,000 years. When you find the Council, let them know whose world they destroyed. Tom accepted the container with reverence. We'll make our ancestors proud. Remember, Jack said, his eyes bright with unshed tears, this isn't about vengeance. It's about justice. Show them that humanity survived, that we thrived, and that we remember. As the Phoenix prepared for its maiden voyage, Haven's citizens gathered to watch. They were no longer refugees hiding from a past they didn't understand. They were the children of Earth, and they were returning to the stars that had once been their home. With fire, the Phoenix glided silently through the darkness of space, its stealth systems cloaking it from the sensors of the small outpost hanging in orbit around a pale blue gas giant. For 3 months, the human vessel had traveled through uncharted territory, mapping Council space and gathering intelligence. Commander Tom Reed stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back as he studied the alien station. The design matched perfectly with the records found in the ancient base, curved organic shapes that seemed to grow out of a central core. After 9,000 years, the Council's architectural style had barely changed. All systems ready, sir, reported his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kate Brown. We can maintain stealth for another 6 hours before needing to recharge. Tom nodded. And our guest? Waiting in his quarters. He seems anxious. As he should be, Tom replied. It's not every day you reveal to an entire galactic civilization that the species they thought they exterminated is very much alive. Paul Reed had lived among aliens for 27 years. As one of Haven's deep-cover operatives, he had undergone extensive surgery to pass as a Teleran, a near-human species from the outer reaches of Council space. His blue-tinted skin and slightly enlarged eyes had become as familiar to him as his original appearance. He adjusted his formal council robes, examining his reflection. Today would be his last day as Delegate Paulus. Today humanity would step out of the shadows. A chime at his door announced Commander Reed's arrival. Despite their shared surname, they were not related. Reed had been a common name among the survivors, a coincidence that sometimes caused confusion. Are you ready? Tom asked, entering the room. Paul gestured to his alien appearance. I've been ready for almost 3 decades. My only regret is that I won't see their faces when I reveal myself. You'll see plenty, Tom assured him. We'll be monitoring the entire exchange. Paul took a deep breath. The outpost commander is named Dorn. He's young for his position, not particularly bright but well-connected. His father sits on the lesser council. Perfect, Tom said with a satisfied smile. The message will travel quickly then. Outpost Commander Dorn was having a boring shift. Monitoring the gas mining operations around Sector 12B was hardly the prestigious assignment he had hoped for, despite his father's influence. He lazily scrolled through production reports, not bothering to read the details. The communication alert startled him from his boredom. "Commander," called his sensor officer, "we're receiving a transmission request from an unregistered vessel. It just appeared on our scans." Dorn frowned. "Smugglers, most likely. Tell them to identify themselves or face impoundment." "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies using Council diplomatic codes. Old ones, but valid." Now fully alert, Dorn straightened his uniform. "Put them through." The view screen flickered to life, showing a blue-skinned Teleran in formal diplomatic robes. Dorn recognized him immediately. "Delegate Paulus? What are you doing out here, and on an unregistered vessel?" The Teleran smiled. "Commander Dorn, I bring greetings from a civilization long thought extinct. I am here to formally announce our return to galactic affairs and request an audience with the Grand Council." Dorn blinked in confusion. "What civilization?" "Your credentials clearly. State you're from the Teleran Alliance." "My credentials," Paulus said, "are as false as my appearance." Before Dorn's eyes, the diplomat reached up and touched a small device behind his ear. His blue skin began to fade, revealing a more pinkish tone underneath. The enlarged eyes shrank. Slightly and subtle changes rippled across his features. "My name is Paul Reed," he said, his voice now missing the slight musical quality of Teleran's speech. "I am human, and I am not alone." Dorn's mouth fell open. "Impossible," he whispered. "Humans are extinct. The Great Cleansing failed," Paul interrupted. "And now, 9,000 years later, we would like to discuss reparations." The view screen expanded to show the bridge of the Phoenix, where Commander Tom Reed and his human crew stood in their distinctive uniforms. Behind them, through the viewport, 5 more massive ships decloaked, appearing as if by magic. "This is Commander Reed of the Human Restoration Fleet," Tom announced. "We come in peace, for now." News of the human return spread through Council, space faster than any official communication ever had. Within hours, emergency sessions were being called on 100 worlds. Within days, the Grand Council itself convened for the first time in nearly a century. Grand Councilor Marn, a tall, thin being with translucent skin that revealed the complex network of glowing veins beneath, addressed the assembled representatives. "Let us be clear." His voice boomed through the chamber. "If these are indeed humans, a claim we have not verified, then they are the descendants of criminals. The historical records are unambiguous. The species displayed dangerous aggressive tendencies and refused to accept Council authority over weapons development." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices until a sharp tone brought silence. "I have studied the transcripts of the human delegation's communication," continued Marn. "They speak of reparations and justice for actions taken by our ancestors 9 millennia ago. They have infiltrated our society, placed spies among us, and now appear with warships at our borders. These are not the actions of a peaceful civilization." A younger council member stood. "But what if we were wrong? The Great Cleansing has been a stain on our history. Many modern scholars questioning the past is a luxury for stable times," Marn interrupted. "We face a crisis now. These beings must be contained while we determine their intentions." Back on the Phoenix, Commander Reed watched the Council's deliberations through the feed provided by their network of spies. The old anger burned in his chest as he listened to Marn speak about containing humanity. Again. "They haven't changed. At all," he said quietly. Admiral Gray, who had arrived with the rest of the fleet, nodded in agreement. 9,000 years and they're still afraid of us. Still want to control us. "Should we proceed to Phase 2? asked Lieutenant Brown. Tom considered the question. Phase 2 would demonstrate human technological superiority in a way the Council couldn't ignore. It would involve disabling a Council military installation without causing casualties. A show, a force designed to open diplomatic channels from a position of strength. Yes, he decided. Select the target we discussed, the orbital defense platform near the Krell homeworld. Sir, said the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from Haven. Elderstone wishes to speak with you. Tom frowned. Haven was light years away. They shouldn't have been able to communicate this quickly unless... Put him through, he ordered. Jackstone's face appeared on the screen, clear as if he were standing on the bridge. I see Dr. Miller's quantum communicator works perfectly, the old man observed with a smile. Another technology the Council banned, Tom replied. What's happened? We've opened more vaults, Jack said, his eyes bright with excitement. Tom, we found them. The fire protocols, the real ones. What we have aboard your ships is just a fraction of what our ancestors created. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. How powerful? Powerful enough to rewrite the terms of our return, Jack said. Powerful enough to make sure the Council never threatens humanity again. Behind Elderstone, Tom could see Dr. Miller working, with a team around a massive piece of machinery that glowed with an inner light that looked like a miniature sun. Proceed with Phase 2, Jack instructed. Show them our resolve, then tell them we're coming home, to Earth. What's left of it belongs to us, and we intend to reclaim it. As the transmission ended, Tom turned to his crew. You heard the Elder. Let's show the Council what 9,000 years of human innovation looks like. The Phoenix and its sister ships engaged their engines, leaving the outpost behind. The first test of human fire was about to begin. The galactic hub floated like a jewel against the backdrop of space, its vast spiral arms extending from a central sphere. For 9,000 years it had served as the seat of Council power, where decisions affecting thousands of worlds were made. Never in its long history had it faced a situation like this. Ambassador Lisa West stood at the viewport of her shuttle, studying the hub as they approached. Despite their military advantage, humanity had chosen to engage diplomatically, at least for now. Impressive, isn't it? Said Security Chief Ward, joining her. His hand rested casually on his sidearm, a habit formed from years of training. Hard to believe our ancestors once stood here as equals, Lisa nodded. And harder still to believe they left here condemned to extinction. Their shuttle docked at a private bay, away from the curious eyes of other species. News of humanity's return had spread throughout Council space, creating a mix of fear, fascination, and in some quarters, hope. Remember, Lisa told her team as they prepared to disembark, we're not here for revenge. We're here for recognition, reparation, and respect. The 3 R's. And if they refuse? Asked Ward. Lisa's expression hardened. Then they'll face the 4th R, retribution. Council historian Ben was not like other Deltans. Where most of his kind pursued careers in commerce or the arts, he had dedicated his life to studying the darker chapters of Council history. For decades, he had researched the Great Cleansing, piecing together fragments of evidence that suggested a different story than the official version. The humans' return vindicated his work, but it also terrified him. He hurried through the hub's vast archives, his 6-fingered hands trembling as he accessed restricted files. The emergency session would begin in hours, and he needed proof before then. Proof that might prevent another catastrophe. Still chasing ghosts, Ben? The voice made him jump. Grand Counselor Marn stood in the doorway, his translucent skin pulsing, with bioluminescent veins, a sign of agitation among his people. Not ghosts anymore, Ben replied, straightening. They've returned, just as my research suggested they might. Marn glided forward. Your research bordered on treason. Questioning the wisdom of the Council's past decisions was necessary, Ben interrupted. The archives contain evidence that Earth's destruction wasn't unanimous. 7 species voted against it, including my own. The humans were developing quickly, yes, but they showed no aggression toward the Council until we moved against them. Ancient history, Marn dismissed. What matters now is containing the threat. Ben's 4 eyes narrowed. That thinking caused this situation in the first place. Perhaps it's time for a different approach. As Marn left, Ben returned to his search with renewed urgency. In the oldest section of the archives, behind layers of security, he finally found what he sought, the original, unaltered recordings of the vote that condemned Earth. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. The decision hadn't been about protection at all. It had been about power. The council chamber hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 100 species took their seats. At the center, a special delegation area had been prepared for the humans, isolated and surrounded by subtle security measures. Ambassador Lisa West entered with her team, her head held high despite the whispers and stares. She wore a simple white uniform adorned only with a small pin, the ancient symbol of Earth. Grand Counselor Marn called the session to order. We are gathered to address the unexpected appearance of those claiming to be descendants of the human species. Before we proceed, we must verify these claims. Lisa stepped forward. Our DNA should be sufficient proof, Counselor Marn, but perhaps this will be more convincing. She nodded to Chief Ward, who activated a holographic display. Above the chamber appeared Earth as it had been 9,000 years ago. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. The image shifted to show massive council ships firing upon the planet, the surface burning as the atmosphere was stripped away. These are your own records, Lisa said calmly. Recovered from our forward bases, the ones your ancestors failed to find when they tried to erase us from existence. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Many younger representatives had never seen the actual footage of Earth's destruction, only read the sanitized accounts. Marn's skin pulsed rapidly. These records were sealed for security reasons. How convenient, Lisa replied. Just as it's convenient that your official history portrays humans as dangerous aggressors who needed to be eliminated for the greater good. We've come to correct that narrative. She gestured, and the hologram changed to show a new image, a devastated barren Earth, and beside it, plans for its restoration. We request formal admission to the Council, acknowledgement of the crimes committed against our species and the return of Earth system to human control, Lisa announced. In exchange, we offer peace and technological cooperation. Cooperation? Marn scoffed. You arrive with warships at our borders, disable one of our defense platforms without warning, and speak of cooperation? We disabled your weapons without causing a single casualty, Lisa corrected. A courtesy your ancestors did not extend to ours. At that moment, Council historian Ben burst into the chamber, clutching a data crystal. Counselors, I have evidence that must be heard. As Ben presented his discoveries, the chamber grew increasingly chaotic. The unaltered records showed that Earth had been destroyed, not because humans were dangerous, but because they had developed technologies that threatened the Council's economic control, particularly in energy production and faster-than-light travel. For 9 millennia, Ben concluded, we've taught our children that humans were monsters who needed to be destroyed. We've made them into demons in our mythology, all to hide a genocide motivated by greed and fear of competition. Many counselors looked stunned. Others seemed unsurprised, suggesting they had known parts of the truth all along. Lisa watched the proceedings with a calculated expression. This revelation wasn't unexpected. Their spies had suggested divisions within the Council. Now those divisions would work to humanity's advantage. What technologies do humans possess now? Asked a representative from a younger species. If you survived and thrived in isolation, surely you've developed beyond what our ancestors feared. Lisa smiled slightly. We could demonstrate, but I'm not sure this chamber would survive the experience. The implied threat hung in the air. Perhaps, Lisa continued, a more controlled demonstration is in order. With your permission, we would like to show you a small fraction of what we call the fire protocol. Before Marn could object, she nodded to Chief Ward, who pressed a small device. Throughout the chamber, every piece of technology, from personal communicators to the grand displays, went dark for precisely 3 seconds. When they reactivated, each screen showed the same image. Earth as it was before destruction, with the words "Remember" pulsing gently beneath. A simple electromagnetic pulse customized to affect only Council technology, Lisa explained. Completely harmless. The next level is somewhat less benign. The chamber erupted into shouts and arguments. Marn called desperately for order, but the Council was splitting before his eyes. In the chaos, Ben approached Lisa. "You knew the truth all along," he said quietly. "Why request admission to a council you know was corrupt?" Lisa's gaze remained fixed on the panicking representatives. "Because, Historian Ben, sometimes the best way to change a system is from within, and sometimes the best revenge is forcing your enemy to welcome you with open arms." Later, in their private quarters, Lisa met with her team and established a secure connection to Commander Reed. "Phase 3 complete," she reported. "The Council is divided. Several younger species are openly supporting our claims, and even some of the founding races are distancing themselves from the original decision." "And Marn?" asked Tom. "Desperately trying to maintain control but losing influence by the hour. His own people are calling for an investigation into his family's role in the Great Cleansing." Tom nodded, satisfied. "Good. Maintain pressure. Admiral, Gray has positioned our fleet near the remains of Earth. We begin Phase 4 tomorrow." "The fire protocol?" Lisa asked, her voice dropping slightly. "Just the first stage," Tom confirmed. "It's time to show them what happens when you give humans 9,000 years to nurture a grudge." As the connection ended, Lisa looked out at the galactic hub. Soon, very soon, the balance of power would shift. Humanity wouldn't just rejoin the galactic community. They would reshape it. And it would all begin with fire. General Sam Hill stood on the command deck of the Redemption, the largest vessel in the human fleet. Through the massive viewport, he could see the dead world that had once been Earth. 9,000 years of cosmic radiation had scoured its surface, clean of the apocalypse that had ended all life there. What remained was a barren rock, its oceans long evaporated, its atmosphere thin and toxic. "Beautiful, isn't it?" asked High Admiral Davis, joining him at the viewport. Sam raised an eyebrow. "Beautiful, it's a graveyard." "Not for long," Davis replied, her eyes reflecting the pale light of Earth's moon. "For 9,000 years we've carried the memory of this place in our hearts. Now we carry the means to bring it back to life." Below them, on the ship's cargo level, Dr. Miller's team was making final preparations. The fire protocol wasn't just a weapon. It was restoration and rebirth rolled into one terrible package. "The Council fleet has changed course," reported the sensor officer. "They're heading this way. Estimated arrival, 6 hours." Sam nodded. "Right on schedule. They took the bait." When Ambassador West had revealed humanity's plans to reclaim Earth, the Council had predictably dispatched their largest battle group to intercept. What they didn't know was that this was exactly what the humans wanted. "Begin deployment," ordered Admiral Davis. "General Hill, your ground teams are cleared to land." Sam turned to his staff. "You heard the Admiral. Operation Phoenix is now active." On the Council flagship, Grand Counselor Marn paced anxiously. The decision to send their fleet had been controversial, with many representatives arguing for continued diplomacy. But Marn had convinced enough of them that the humans' plan to restore Earth represented an unacceptable threat. "We cannot allow them to deploy unknown technology in the heart of Council space," he had argued. "Whatever this fire protocol is, it could destabilize the entire region." In truth, Marn's motivations were more personal. His family's fortune had been built on technologies confiscated during the Great Cleansing. If humans returned in force, those historical claims might be investigated. "Counselor," called the fleet commander, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the human ships. They appear to be deploying devices to Earth's surface." Marn's translucent skin pulsed with alarm. "How many ships do they have in the system?" "Only 6 that we can detect," the commander replied. "Our fleet outnumbers them 10 to 1. "Don't underestimate them," Marn warned. 9,000 years of isolation has made them unpredictable. Order the fleet to maximum speed. We must stop whatever they're doing." On Earth's surface, Sam's team worked quickly to install the devices Dr. Miller had created. Each one was roughly the size of a small car, with a glowing blue core surrounded by intricate machinery. "Deployment at Site 1 complete," reported Team Leader Jones over the comm. "Moving to Site 2. Sam acknowledged from his command shuttle hovering above the dead landscape. Through his viewport, he could see the first device beginning to pulse, sending ripples of blue energy into the ground around it. "General," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from a ship that just entered the system. They're identifying themselves as the Resistance." Sam frowned. This wasn't part of the plan. "Put them through." The view screen showed a mixed crew of various alien species. Their leader stepped forward, a tall, four-armed being with mottled skin. "General Hill, I am Resistance Leader Mark," he said in careful human language. "My people and many others have fought council, oppression for centuries. When we heard humans had returned, we came to offer our support." Sam studied the alien carefully. Intelligence reports had mentioned dissident factions within council space, but direct contact had not been established. "Your support is appreciated, but this operation is delicate," Sam replied. "What exactly are you offering?" Mark's four hands made a complex gesture. "Information. The council fleet approaching isn't coming to negotiate. They've activated weapon systems normally reserved for planetary bombardment." Sam's blood ran cold. "They would destroy Earth again. There's nothing left to destroy." "They fear what you might create more than what already exists," Mark explained. "We can help delay them. My ship carries a council identification beacon. We can confuse their approach." After a moment's consideration, Sam nodded. "Very well. Coordinate with my tactical officer. But understand this. If you betray us, you'll be the first to witness what the fire protocol can really do." As the council fleet approached Earth, chaos erupted in their formation. Sensor readings became scrambled, communication channels filled with static, and navigation systems showed conflicting data. "What is happening?" demanded Marn. "Unknown, Counselor," replied the increasingly frustrated commander. "It appears to be some form of electronic warfare. Our systems can't penetrate it." On the tactical display, the human ships appeared to multiply, with dozens of ghost images appearing and disappearing. Targeting computers failed to lock onto any consistent signature. "Launch fighters," ordered the commander. "They can rely on visual confirmation." But as the fighters deployed, a new phenomenon appeared. Surrounding Earth, a shimmering field of energy began to form, connecting the devices the humans had planted. On the surface, "Counselor," called the science officer, voice trembling, "you need to see this." The main screen showed Earth's surface beginning to glow. Around each device, the barren ground was changing. Where there had been only dust and rock, patches of green were spreading outward at an impossible rate. "What are we witnessing?" whispered Marn. Aboard the Redemption, High Admiral Davis watched with satisfaction as the fire protocol activated its first phase. The devices were working exactly as Dr. Miller had promised, using the stored energy of a manufactured star to accelerate cellular growth and atmospheric regeneration. "Admiral," reported her aide, "the Council fleet has stalled at the outer defense perimeter. General Hill reports that all devices are online and functioning at optimal levels." Davis nodded. "And the Resistance ships?" "Performing as agreed. They're jamming Council communications and providing false sensor readings." "Perfect. Signal Ambassador, West. Tell her it's time for the final act of our diplomatic play." On the galactic hub, Ambassador Lisa West stood before an emergency session of the Council. The chamber's displays showed live footage of Earth where the transformation was accelerating. Rivers were forming in ancient dried riverbeds, plants were spreading across the surface, and the thin atmosphere was visibly thickening. "This is the true fire protocol," Lisa announced to the stunned representatives. "Not a weapon of destruction, but of creation. For 9,000 years we've developed technology the Council feared. The ability to terraform dead worlds into living ones in a matter of days rather than centuries." She gestured to the displays, where the glowing blue energy now covered nearly half the planet. "What you're witnessing is controlled stellar fusion. harnessing the power of a star to accelerate life rather than destroy it. Council historian Ben stepped forward. The ancient records spoke of human research into solar manipulation. This is what they meant. Yes, Lisa confirmed. Technology the Council banned because it would have made their control of habitable worlds meaningless. Any species could have claimed any dead rock and transformed it into a paradise. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as representatives grasped the implications. The Council's power had always rested on controlling access to habitable worlds. But why return to Earth, asked one representative. Why not simply use this technology on other planets? Lisa's expression hardened. Because Earth is ours, and because we wanted you to witness what you destroyed. What could have been shared with all species had the Council chosen cooperation instead of genocide? On the displays, the transformation continued unabated. Where the Council fleet had come to prevent a weapons deployment, they now bore witness to a miracle. Earth was being reborn before their eyes, and humanity's fire, long thought extinguished, now burned brighter than ever before. The light of a reborn sun shone down on Earth's surface. Where once there had been only barren rock, now seas glimmered blue against continents lush with new growth. The atmosphere, thick and breathable, carried the scent of soil and plant life. Smells that had not existed on this world for 9 millennia. Commander Tom Reed stood on a grassy hill overlooking what ancient maps had once called the Mediterranean. Behind him, the Phoenix rested on landing struts, its crew working to establish the first permanent human settlement on their ancestral homeworld. Hard to believe it's the same planet, said Admiral Gray, joining him. When I first saw it 3 weeks ago, it was nothing but dust and stone. Tom nodded. Dr. Miller's fire protocol exceeded even her expectations. The terraforming is nearly 80% complete. Below them, teams of scientists moved across the landscape, collecting samples and taking readings. The planet's rebirth was happening at an astonishing pace. What should have taken centuries was unfolding in days. Plants grew visibly, oceans filled by the hour, and the once toxic atmosphere sweetened with each passing minute. And the Council? Asked Tom. Still in complete disarray, Gray replied with a hint of satisfaction. Their fleet remains in orbit but purely as observers now. The vote to recognize our claim to Earth passed yesterday. Tom's gaze drifted to the sky, where the Council's massive ships could be seen as distant silver specks. Not that they had much choice. Hard to argue with a species that can rebirth a planet. Commander, called a young officer approaching rapidly up the hill. Ambassador West's shuttle has entered the atmosphere. The Council delegation is with her. Tom straightened his uniform. Then it's time for the final act. The landing site had been prepared carefully. A simple platform of polished stone stood at the center of a wide meadow. No weapons were visible, though security teams watched vigilantly from a distance. This moment had been planned for generations, the formal return of humanity to the galactic stage. Ambassador Lisa West led the procession of Council representatives. At her side walked Council historian Ben, who had become an unexpected ally. Behind them came Grand Counselor Marn, his translucent skin dimmed with what might have been shame, and representatives from 20 other species. Elder Jack Stone awaited them at the platform. Despite his age, he had insisted on making the journey from Haven to witness this moment. Dr. Ann Miller stood beside him, datapad in hand as she monitored the ongoing terraforming process. "Welcome to Earth," Jack said simply as the delegation approached. "Welcome to the home we have reclaimed." Marn stepped forward, his movement stiff. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally acknowledge humanity's sovereignty over the Sol system and recognize Earth as your ancestral homeworld." The words seemed to pain him physically. The Council extends an invitation for humanity to take its place as a full member species. Jack looked at the Grand Counselor for a long moment. 9,000 years of exile and preparation had led to this moment. Generations had lived and died dreaming of this day, when those who had tried to erase humanity would be forced to welcome them back. "We accept," Jack said finally. "But with conditions." From a small container he removed a handful of soil, The same earth soil that had been preserved since the Great Cleansing, passed down through his family line. He let it fall through his fingers onto the new ground beneath them. The first condition, truth. The Council will acknowledge the true history of the Great Cleansing in all official records. Future generations will know that Earth was destroyed, not because humans were dangerous, but because we threatened your monopolies. Marn's skin pulsed, but he nodded reluctantly. Second, reform. The Council's structure will be reorganized to prevent any future genocide. No species shall be denied membership based on their technological development. That would fundamentally alter the balance of power, Marn began. Yes, interrupted Jack. It would. That's the point. Council historian Ben stepped forward. Many Council members already support such reforms, Councillor Marn. The younger species especially. Marn looked around at the transformed landscape, proof of what human technology could accomplish, and yielded. The Council will consider these reforms. The Asur. Council will implement these reforms, corrected Tom, speaking for the first time, or humanity will share the fire protocol with every non-Council world on the galactic rim. The threat didn't need elaboration. If every marginalized species suddenly gained the ability to create habitable worlds, the Council's power would collapse. Overnight. And the third condition? Asked Marn, his voice barely audible. Jack's aged face softened slightly. Peace. Genuine, lasting peace. What happened to Earth will never happen again. To any world, the technology that restored our home can heal others. We offer this as our contribution to a new galactic order. 1 month later, Commander Reed stood in the newly constructed Memorial Hall in what had once been a place called Geneva. Through the vast windows, he could see the rebuilt city taking shape as colonists from Haven established their new home. It's strange, said Dr. Miller, joining him. For generations we prepared for war. We built weapons, trained soldiers, nurtured our anger, and in the end, our greatest weapon wasn't destruction at all. Tom nodded. Creation always was more powerful. Our ancestors understood that. It's why they preserved the terraforming technology instead of building planet killers. The hall filled slowly with humans and aliens alike. The first joint session of the Reformed Council was about to begin, with Earth serving as its temporary headquarters while the hub was restructured. Elder Jack Stone would preside, his lifetime of leadership culminating in this moment. Resistance. Leader Mark approached them, his forearms making the gesture of respect. My people thank you. Already the fire protocol has begun restoring worlds damaged by Council exploitation. Planets thought ruined forever will soon support life again. That was always the plan, replied Tom. Not just to reclaim our home, but to ensure no species would ever face extinction again. Above the hall, a great dome opened to reveal the sky. The sun, Earth's sun, shone down upon the assembly as Jack Stone took his place at the center. 9,000 years ago, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. A great wrong was committed. A species was nearly erased from existence because they dared to innovate beyond the boundaries set by others. He paused, looking around at the gathered representatives. Today we do not merely correct that wrong. We transform it into something better. The fire that has restored Earth is the same fire that burns in all sentient beings. The desire to grow, to build, to create. From this day forward, that fire will not be feared or suppressed, but shared and celebrated. As if in response to his words, the final phase of the fire protocol activated. High above, Earth's atmosphere shimmered with a brief aurora, the last adjustments completing the planet's rebirth. Commander Tom Reed watched the spectacle with a complex mixture of emotions. Vindication, yes, but also something unexpected. Hope. The mission that had guided humanity for 9,000 years was complete. Earth was restored. The Council was reformed. Justice had been achieved. But this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. As the aurora faded, leaving behind a perfectly blue sky, Tom thought of all those generations who had kept the flame of memory alive, who had passed down the soil of Earth from hand to hand, who had never forgotten their origins. Even as they built new homes among distant stars, they had returned with fire, not to burn but to illuminate, to light a new path forward for all species. And Earth, once dead, now lived again. The stars watched in silence as the human ship Prometheus pushed the limits of what should be possible. Captain Jack Reed stood on the bridge, his weathered face tense as he gripped the edge of the command console. The ship trembled around him. "All systems are at maximum," called out Tom, his chief engineer. "The collision drivers are hot and ready." Jack nodded. "Begin the sequence." Humanity had tried for centuries to break the light-speed barrier. Old theories said it couldn't be done. Then Dr. Morgan changed everything with her collision theory. The idea that by forcing controlled near collisions between massive objects at almost light speed, the fabric of space itself would tear open paths faster than light. The scientists called it riding the shockwave. The rest of Earth just called it crazy. "Collision pairs aligned," said Lisa from the navigation station. Her fingers danced across the controls with practiced speed. "Starting countdown." Through the view screen, Jack watched as 8 pairs of massive tungsten spheres began to spin around the ship, moving faster with each second. Each sphere weighed as much as a small mountain, held in magnetic fields that guided their dance. 10 seconds to collision point. The crew grew silent. 6 test ships had gone before them. None returned. 5 seconds. Jack closed his eyes briefly. If this failed, they would join the others in the graveyard of human ambition. 3, 2, 1. Collision. The spheres crashed together at 99.9% light speed. The energy released was more than a small sun, but instead of destroying the ship, the collisions happened in perfect harmony, creating a ripple, a wrinkle in spacetime that opened like a tunnel. The ship lurched forward. Alarms blared. Everyone was thrown against their restraints. "Status!" Jack yelled over the noise. We're moving," Tom shouted back, his eyes wide as he stared at his readouts. "Speed calculation is impossible. We're going faster than light." A cheer erupted on the bridge. Humanity had done it. They had broken the universe's speed limit using the most human approach possible, by smashing things together until physics gave up. Across the galaxy, in a vast chamber of crystalline pillars and floating platforms, an alarm sounded for the first time in 800 years. Trell of the Vorn stood from his meditation pool, his gray skin glistening under the soft lights. As senior observer for the Galactic Council, he had monitored thousands of emerging species, but never had he seen readings like these. "Counselor Trell," a voice called. His assistant Mira hurried toward him, her 4 legs moving in perfect rhythm. "The sensors have detected a space-time distortion in Sector 879. "Natural phenomenon?" Trell asked, though he already suspected the answer. "No, sir, it appears to be artificial. And the energy pattern?" She hesitated. "It's unlike anything in our records." Trell moved to the central platform where a holographic display showed the disturbance. A violent tear in the fabric of reality, bleeding energy in all directions. "What could cause such damage?" he whispered. "The distortion originated from a system with an emerging species. They call themselves humans." Trell had read reports about these humans. Aggressive, curious, barely 1,000 years into their technological development, far too young to be experimenting with faster-than-light travel. "Prepare my ship," he ordered, "and alert the Council. This requires immediate investigation." The journey back to Earth took only minutes. Inside the Prometheus, the crew could barely believe what their instruments told them. They had traveled farther in those minutes than light would travel in a year. "Begin deceleration," Jack ordered as Earth appeared on their screens. As the ship slowed, dropping out of the FTL corridor, the collision masses cooled behind them. But something was wrong. Where the spheres should have been whole, ready for the next journey, several had cracked. The energy released had been far more than calculated. "Captain?" Lisa's voice was tight with worry. "We're picking up disturbance readings. The collision effect, it didn't just affect our immediate area." Jack frowned. "Explain." The space-time ripple spread outward. According to these readings, it may have affected areas up to 5 light-years away. Before Jack could respond, another alarm sounded. "Unknown ship approaching," Tom called out. "It's not one of ours, and it's moving fast." On the main screen, a vessel appeared. Unlike the practical, angular design of human ships, this one was smooth, almost organic in appearance. It glowed with a soft blue light and moved with impossible grace. "Are they transmitting?" Jack asked. "Yes, sir. Some kind of signal, but nothing our systems recognize." Jack straightened his uniform. "First contact protocol. Open all communication channels and transmit the greeting package." As Earth celebrated, below, unaware of what approached, the Prometheus prepared to meet the first aliens humanity had ever encountered. They didn't know that across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was already in emergency session, viewing humanity not as a new friend, but as a dangerous child playing with fire. Trell watched the human ship through his vessel's sensors. The readings confirmed his worst fears. These humans had achieved faster-than-light travel through a method so violent, so crude, that it had damaged the fabric of space itself. The Council had very strict rules about FTL development. All member species used variations of gentle folding, carefully bending space-time to allow ships to slip through. It had taken most species thousands of years to develop the delicate technology required. These humans had instead used brute force, smashing objects together to tear a hole through reality itself. "They've opened a communication channel," his pilot informed him. "Respond," Trell said. "Let us see what these innovators have to say for themselves." On his screen appeared the face of a human male. Behind him, other humans worked at various stations, their movements quick and excited. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Jack Reed of the Earthship Prometheus. We come in peace and friendship." Trell studied the human's face. There was pride there, and excitement. No sign of understanding the damage they had caused. "Captain Reed," Trell responded. "I am Counselor Trell of the Galactic Council. Your experiment has been detected. I must inform you that your method of faster-than-light travel violates the basic principles of safe interstellar transit. The Council requests immediate cessation of all such activities." The human's expression changed to confusion, then something harder. "Counselor, our achievement is the culmination of decades of work. With respect, we don't take orders from organizations we've just learned exist." Trell sighed. This would not be easy. "Captain Reed, we have much to discuss. May I come aboard? Your vessel?" The first meeting between humanity and the galaxy had begun. Neither side yet understood how badly it would end. News of the Prometheus's success spread across Earth like wildfire. Crowds gathered in every major city, eyes turned to the skies. Humanity had broken the light barrier. The stars were now within reach. In the high-ceilinged meeting room of the United Space Command headquarters, Admiral Peters paced back and forth. Her gray uniform was perfectly pressed, but her patience was wearing thin. "You're telling me," she said, stopping to face Captain Jack Reed, "that some alien council wants us to stop using our FTL technology? The same technology that took us 50 years to develop?" Jack nodded, his face serious. Counselor Trell was very clear about their concerns. "They believe our method is dangerous." Admiral Peters snorted. "Of course it's dangerous. Space travel has always been dangerous. That didn't stop us before." The door opened and Dr. Morgan entered. She was shorter than both officers, but her presence filled the room. As the inventor of the collision drive, she had become Earth's newest hero overnight. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "I was reviewing the data from our jump." She placed a tablet on the table. The collision drive worked better than expected, but there were some unexpected effects. "Like what?" Admiral Peters asked. "The space-time distortion spread further than our models predicted. Much further." Dr. Morgan pulled up a holographic display showing ripples extending outward from Earth. These energy waves traveled at multiples of light speed. According to Trell's information, they damaged several of their observation posts. Before anyone could respond, an aide entered. "The alien delegation has arrived, Admiral. Admiral Peters straightened her uniform. Let's hear what they have to say. Trell entered the room with two other council members. One was tall and insect-like, with compound eyes that reflected the room in hundreds of tiny images. The other looked almost human, except for the pale blue skin and six-fingered hands. "Thank you for meeting with us," Trell said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. "I am Trell of the Vorn. These are my colleagues, Zix of the Hivemind and Ula from the Blue Worlds." Admiral Peters nodded stiffly. "I'm Admiral Peters, Earth United Space Command. This is Captain Reed of the Prometheus and Dr. Morgan, creator of our FTL drive." Trell's eyes fixed on Dr. Morgan with a look that might have been respect mixed with horror. "Dr. Morgan," he said, "your achievement is remarkable. But I must be direct. The method you've developed violates the fundamental principles the Council has established for safe interstellar travel." Dr. Morgan crossed her arms. "With all due respect, Counselor, we didn't know your council existed until yesterday. We developed our technology independently." "We understand," said Ula, her voice melodic. "But now that you know, we must insist you cease using this method immediately. The collision drive creates tears in space-time that can affect star systems, light years away. You're asking us to throw away decades of work," Admiral Peters said flatly. Zix's antennae twitched. "The Council can provide alternative FTL technology, methods that have been refined over thousands of years by dozens of species. So we just abandon our own research and use your hand-me-downs?" Dr. Morgan's voice rose. "That's not how humans operate." Trell spread his four-fingered hands. "Please understand. Every species in the Council has faced this moment, when they must choose between their own path and joining the greater galactic community." Admiral Peters leaned forward. "And if we choose our own path?" The room grew tense. "That would be unfortunate," Trell said quietly. Miles away, in a small diner outside the Space Command complex, a group of regular people watched the news on a wall screen. The reporter stood in front of a crowd waving signs that read, "Earth First" and "No, Alien Control." Protests have broken out in 12 major cities, the reporter said, as citizens react to rumors that the alien delegation is demanding Earth abandon its FTL program. At a corner table, Tom, the Prometheus's chief engineer, nursed a coffee. Next to him, Lisa stared at her untouched food. "They don't get it," Tom said. "The collision drive is just the beginning. The things we could learn from these aliens and—" "I don't trust them," said an older man at the next table. "They show up right after our big breakthrough. Seems fishy to me." Lisa shook her head. "You weren't there. You didn't see the readings. Our jump created ripples that traveled for light years. What if we damaged something important?" "So what?" the man replied. "Space is big. If they don't like how we travel, they can stay out of our way." The argument spreading through the diner mirrored debates happening all over Earth. Some saw the aliens as wise teachers, others as threats to human independence. Back in the meeting room, Dr. Morgan pulled up more data on her tablet. "You're gentle. Folding method," she said to Trell. "How long does it take to travel 10 light years?" "Approximately 3 Earth days," Trell answered. Dr. Morgan smiled. "Our collision drive did it in under an hour." The alien delegates exchanged glances. "Speed isn't everything," Ula said gently. "Your method is like using a sledgehammer when a scalpel is needed." "Sometimes a sledgehammer is exactly what you need," Admiral Peters countered. Trell's expression grew grave. "The Council has voted. Earth must cease all collision drive experiments immediately. We can offer technical assistance to develop approved methods." "And if we refuse?" Captain Reed asked. "Then Earth will be quarantined," Zix stated. "No ships in or out of your system until you comply." Admiral Peters stood up suddenly. "That sounds like a threat, Counselor." "It is reality," Trell replied calmly. "The Council has maintained peace among the stars for 50,000 years. We cannot allow a new species to endanger that peace through reckless technology." As the meeting ended in a stalemate, both sides retreated to consider their options. The humans felt bullied and controlled. The council representatives felt frustrated by human stubbornness. That night, in her lab, Dr. Morgan worked alone. On her screen, calculations for an improved collision drive took shape. If the aliens were so afraid of the current design, she reasoned, then she must be onto something important, something that could give humanity an edge. They think we'll just roll over and accept their rules, she muttered as she worked. They don't understand humans at all. Outside her window, the stars seemed closer than ever before. But now they held not just promise, but potential conflict. The collision between human determination and alien caution had begun. 2 months had passed since the Council's ultimatum. Earth had officially refused to abandon their collision drive technology, claiming sovereign right to develop their own path to the stars. The response from the Galactic Council was swift. Captain Jack Reed stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station, watching as alien ships positioned themselves at the edge of the solar system. Their sleek forms glinted in the distant sunlight. "How many now?" Admiral Peters asked, joining him at the window. 17 Council vessels, Jack replied. They've placed monitoring stations around the entire system. Nothing gets in or out without them knowing. Admiral Peters' face hardened. A blockade by any other name. They call it a quarantine, Jack corrected, for the safety of nearby systems. I call it the first step toward control. She turned to face him. How is Dr. Morgan's project progressing? Jack lowered his voice. The enhanced drive is almost ready. We've been testing components in secret. If it works, we'll be able to break through their line before they can react. Admiral Peters nodded with satisfaction. Good. I want the Prometheus ready to fly as soon as possible. In his temporary quarters on the Council flagship, Trell reviewed the latest reports from home. The Council was growing impatient with his diplomatic approach. Many members wanted to take more direct action against the humans. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Bryn, the Council's chief scientist for space-time studies. You found something? Trell asked. Bryn nodded, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. I've completed my analysis of the human FTL method. She placed a data crystal on the desk, which projected a complex model of space-time. It's worse than we feared. The projection showed ripples extending outward from a central point, growing larger and more distorted as they traveled. The collision creates a cascade effect, Bryn explained. Each use weakens the fabric of space-time in that region. Multiple uses could create permanent instabilities. Could these instabilities affect inhabited systems? Trell asked. If the humans continue to develop more powerful versions of their drive, yes. A sufficiently large collision could potentially destabilize a star. Trell's skin paled. The Council must be informed immediately. Dr. Morgan worked through the night in her underground laboratory. The new collision drive was twice as powerful as the original, with refined control systems that would allow for more precise jumps. Her assistant, Ben, looked nervous as he checked the simulation results. The energy output is massive, he said. Are you sure the containment fields will hold? Dr. Morgan didn't look up from her work. They'll hold. We've made significant improvements. But the Council scientists said, The Council, Dr. Morgan interrupted, wants to keep us dependent on their technology. They're afraid of us moving too quickly, becoming too independent. Ben frowned. What if they're right about the dangers? Dr. Morgan finally looked up. Every major breakthrough in human history came with risks. Fire, electricity, nuclear power, space travel. All were dangerous. All changed everything. She gestured to the drive components. This is no different. Her computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from Admiral Peters. Council meeting tomorrow. Vote on forcible technology removal. Accelerate timeline. Dr. Morgan's face hardened. We need to move faster. The Council is running out of patience. The emergency council session was held virtually, with representatives from all 37 member species participating. Trell presented Bryn's findings, showing how the human collision drive could potentially threaten stable star systems. "We have attempted diplomacy," the hive mind representative stated. "The humans refuse to listen to reason." "They are young," countered a representative of the gas giant dwellers. "All species are stubborn in their youth." "Youth is no excuse for recklessness, Lo," said the elder of the Silicon consciousness. "If they will not cease voluntarily, we must intervene." The debate raged for hours before the final vote. 29 in favor, 8 against. The Council would send a technical team to Earth to disable the human FTL program, by force if necessary. Trell was ordered to inform the humans of the decision. The Council's message arrived while Earth's leadership was in session. Admiral Peters listened with growing anger as Trell explained the Council's decision. "This is a violation of our sovereignty," she said when the message ended. "They have no right." The President of the United Earth Government looked troubled. "If their scientists are correct about the dangers—" "They're scientists," Admiral Peters cut in. "Not ours. We've seen no proof of these supposed dangers." Dr. Morgan, who had been invited to the meeting, spoke up. "Our enhanced drive is ready for testing. We can demonstrate that our technology can be controlled safely." "It's too late for demonstrations," the defense minister said grimly. "The Council technical team is already on its way. They'll be here in 3 days. Admiral Peters stood. "Then we have 3 days to prepare our response." The Council technical vessel approached Earth under escort from 2 military ships. Their mission was clear: assess all human FTL facilities and disable them using specialized equipment. What they didn't expect was the reception committee. 6 Earth ships surrounded the approaching Council vessels just beyond the Moon's orbit. At their center was the Prometheus, newly outfitted with the enhanced collision drive and weaponry that hadn't been there during first contact. "Council vessels, this is Captain Jack Reed of the Earth Defense Force. Your presence in Earth space without authorization is a violation of our territory. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." On the Council flagship, the commander turned to Trell in shock. "They dare to threaten us? We are here under Council authority." Trell looked troubled. "Captain Reed, we come under peaceful terms. Our mission is to ensure the safety of all species in this sector of space. By disabling our technology against our will?" Jack's voice was hard. "That's not peace. That's subjugation. The technology must be contained until we agree to play by your rules?" Jack interrupted. "That's not going to happen." The Council commander had heard enough. "Deploy the technical team. The military escort will ensure their safety." As the smaller technical vessel separated from the escort, the Prometheus moved to intercept. "This is your final warning," Jack transmitted. "Withdraw immediately." The Council ships continued forward. Jack looked at his weapons officer and nodded. The first shot of the conflict wasn't meant to destroy, only disable. The energy pulse struck the technical vessel's propulsion system, sending it spinning off course. The Council military ships immediately moved to defensive positions, powering up their own weapons. "All Earth vessels defensive formation," Jack ordered. They fired first by ignoring our warning. In the chaos that followed, no one could later agree on who fired the kill shot. But when the energy beams and plasma bolts stopped flying, one of the Council escort ships was drifting, its core systems critically damaged. The first blood had been drawn. What had begun as a technological dispute had just become a war. On Earth, Admiral Peters received the news with grim resolve. She opened a secure channel to all Earth Defense Forces. "Operation Breakout is now active," she announced. "May God help us all." The news of the battle near the Moon spread across Earth like a shockwave. Within hours, the planet was on full war footing. Defense forces mobilized, civilian ships were called back to port, and the orbital defense platforms activated their shield systems. Admiral Peters stood in the war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of Earth forces and the growing number of Council ships entering the system. "They've called for reinforcements," she said, pointing to the outer system where new energy signatures were appearing. "At least 30 more vessels on approach." The military leaders exchanged grim looks. They were outnumbered and outgunned by a force with thousands of years more experience in space warfare. "Then it's time to reveal our secret weapon," Admiral Peters said. She pressed a button on her comm unit. "Dr. Morgan, you're cleared to launch." Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a facility unknown even to most of Earth's military, Dr. Morgan gave the final order. Massive hangar doors slid open, revealing row after row of small, sleek vessels. "The Thunder Fleet is ready," she told her team. "Begin launch sequence." While the Council had been focused on Earth, humans had been busy building. Each of the 100 ships in the hidden hangar was equipped with a miniaturized version of the Enhanced Collision Drive. "This is Thunder Leader," said the fleet commander over the comm. "All vessels report ready status." Dr. Morgan nodded with satisfaction. "You have your orders. Show them what humans can do." On the Council command ship, Trell watched in horror as the battle reports came in. The human resistance was stronger than anyone had predicted. Their ships were crude by Council standards, but they fought with a ferocity that shocked the alien forces. "We've lost contact with the blockade at Mars," an officer reported. "What do you mean, lost contact?" the Council commander demanded. There was nothing on Mars but research outposts. Bryn, who had been analyzing sensor data, looked up with alarm. New energy signatures detected. Hundreds of them, all using the collision drive technology. Trell moved to the viewing screen. What he saw defied belief. A swarm of small Earth vessels had appeared from nowhere, each blinking in and out of normal space as they used their FTL, drives for micro-jumps within the solar system. "Impossible," the commander whispered. "FTL cannot be used for tactical movement in such confined spaces. The calculations alone would—" "They're not calculating," Bryn interrupted. "They're brute-forcing it, using the collision effect itself as a weapon." On the screen, an Earthship appeared directly beside a Council cruiser. Before the cruiser could react, the human vessel fired its collision drive. The space-time distortion ripped through the cruiser's hull like it was paper. "All ships," the commander ordered, "maintain minimum safe distance from human vessels. Their drives are weaponized." Captain Jack Reed led the Prometheus through the chaos of battle. His enhanced ship was now the tip of Earth's spear, demonstrating capabilities that made even the Thunder Fleet seem primitive. "Jump to coordinates Alpha 7, he ordered. The ship shuddered as the collision drive engaged. In an instant, they moved from Earth orbit to a position behind the main Council battle group. "Fire everything," Jack commanded. The Prometheus unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy weapons. But its most devastating attack was the controlled collision pulse that distorted space-time around 3 Council ships, crushing them as normal physics reasserted itself. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority message from Earth. New Council forces have appeared in orbit around Europa." Jack's expression darkened. Europa, with its underwater colonies, was home to over 5 million humans. Set course for Jupiter space, maximum speed. The battle around Europa was already going badly when the Prometheus arrived. Council forces had established orbital dominance and were systematically disabling the Moon's defense systems. What the Council didn't expect was how humans would defend their colony. As their ships closed in, the ice surface of Europa cracked open. From beneath the frozen crust, massive railguns emerged, firing tungsten rods at speeds that made them as devastating as nuclear weapons without the radiation. "Those aren't military installations," Trell said in shock as he watched the feed from Europa. "Those are mining equipment repurposed as weapons." The Council commander's expression was grim. "These humans, they turn everything into a weapon, even their mining tools." The arrival of the Prometheus changed the balance of the battle. Using its collision drive to jump from position to position, it was nearly impossible to target. Each jump created ripples of distorted space that disrupted Council targeting systems. Back on Earth, Admiral Peters received troubling news. The continuous use of collision drives throughout the solar system was having cumulative effects. Space-time itself was becoming unstable in certain areas. "Dr. Morgan," she called over a secure channel, "we're seeing anomalies forming near the battle zones." In her lab, Dr. Morgan reviewed the data with growing concern. "The drives are interacting with each other, creating feedback loops. If this continues, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Trell managed to establish a private communication channel with the Prometheus during a lull in the fighting. "Captain Reed," he said urgently, "your fleet must stop using the collision drives immediately. The combined effect is creating instabilities that could tear apart your entire system." Jack's face showed no surprise. "We know the risks, Counselor, but we also know that if we stop, the Council will disable our technology and place Earth under permanent control." "This isn't about control anymore," Trell insisted. "This is about survival. Bryn has analyzed the data. The anomalies are growing exponentially. Within days, they could begin affecting planetary orbits." Jack was silent for a moment. "Even if I wanted to stop, it's too late. The Thunderfleet is operating independently across the system, and Admiral Peters will never order a stand down while Council ships remain in Earth space. Then we face mutual destruction," Trell said softly. "For the first time since the conflict began." Jack looked uncertain. "There might be one way. I need to speak with Dr. Morgan and your scientist Bryn. Together they might find a solution." As the war raged across Earth's solar system, two scientists from opposite sides worked frantically to prevent catastrophe. In a secure communication channel, Dr. Morgan and Bryn shared data and theories. "The collision method itself isn't inherently flawed," Dr. Morgan argued. "It's the interaction between multiple drives that's causing the problem." "Perhaps," Bryn conceded, "but the energy release is still too violent. It creates tears rather than folds in spacetime." As they debated, a new anomaly formed near Mars, swallowing a Council ship and 2 human vessels in seconds. Time was running out for both sides. The war in orbit had moved beyond questions of technology and sovereignty. Now it was a race against the collapse of spacetime itself. On the Prometheus, Captain Jack Reed made a decision that would change everything. "Set course for Council Command," he ordered. "I'm going to offer them a deal they can't refuse." What that deal would be, even he wasn't sure. But as both human and Council ships continued to disappear into growing anomalies, one thing was clear. This war had to end before there was nothing left to fight for. The Prometheus approached the Council flagship under a flag of truce. Space around them shimmered with the unnatural light of growing anomalies. In some places, stars seemed to bend and stretch as space-time itself began to tear. Captain Jack Reed stood alone in the transport bay, waiting to be beamed aboard the alien vessel. He carried no weapons, only a data tablet with Dr. Morgan's latest findings. "This is madness," his first officer had told him. "They could capture you, kill you." "If we don't stop this war now," Jack had replied, "there won't be anyone left to capture or kill." The transport beam enveloped him in blue light. When it faded, he stood in a circular chamber aboard the Council flagship. Trell was there, along with the Council commander and Bryn. "Captain Reed," Trell said, stepping forward, "your request for direct talks was unexpected." Jack looked at each alien face in turn. "We're beyond politics now. If these anomalies continue to grow, this entire star system could collapse." The Council commander's expression was cold. "A problem created by human recklessness." "Perhaps," Jack conceded, "but assigning blame won't save any of us." He activated his tablet, projecting a hologram of the solar system with red spots marking each anomaly. "There are now 17 major anomalies. 3 have already swallowed ships from both sides." Bryn moved closer to examine the data. "The growth rate is accelerating. We may have only days before they begin affecting planetary orbits." "We need to shut down all collision drives immediately," Trell said. "Agreed," Jack nodded. "But that alone won't be enough. The anomalies have become self-sustaining." "Then what do you propose?" the commander asked. Jack took a deep breath. "Dr. Morgan and Bryn have developed a theory. If we can't stop the anomalies from growing, perhaps we can merge them into a single, controlled anomaly that we can then collapse." Bryn's 4 eyes widened. "That would require precise calculations and timing. The energy involved would be enormous." "And a ship capable of withstanding those energies," Jack added. "The Prometheus has been modified for this purpose." Understanding dawned on Trell's face. You're proposing a suicide mission. Jack's expression didn't change. I'm proposing a solution. Deep in her secret lab beneath the Martian surface, Dr. Morgan worked frantically to modify the Prometheus's collision drive. When her comm unit chimed, she answered without looking up. Morgan here. Doctor? Admiral Peters' voice was tense. I've just received word of Captain Reed's plan. Is this really our only option? Dr. Morgan paused, her hands hovering over the equipment. The collision drives were my creation, Admiral. Their misuse is my responsibility. That doesn't answer my question. Yes, Dr. Morgan said firmly. This is our only option. The anomalies are feeding on each other, growing stronger. If we don't act now, we'll lose everything. Earth, Mars, the entire system. There was silence on the other end. Then, what do you need from me? Order all Earth ships to power down their collision drives immediately and... She hesitated. Tell the Council we agree to their terms. After this is over, we'll need their help to rebuild. Across the solar system, human ships received the shutdown order. One by one, the collision drives went offline. The Thunder Fleet, which had been Earth's secret weapon, now retreated to safe orbits. The Council ships also pulled back, creating a wide berth around the largest anomalies. On Earth, people gathered around screens watching as news of the plan spread. The Prometheus, once a symbol of human achievement, was now their last hope for survival. All systems are ready, Jack reported from the Prometheus. The ship hung in space between three of the largest anomalies. Its enhanced collision drive had been modified into what Dr. Morgan called a space-time sewing machine, a device that could potentially stitch together the tiers in reality. On the view screen, Trell's face showed concern. Our scientists give this a 30% chance of success, Captain. Jack managed a small smile. Humans have beaten worse odds. The plan was daring in its simplicity. The Prometheus would use its modified drive to create a controlled collision effect between the anomalies, forcing them to merge. Then, with a final pulse from the drive, they would collapse the combined anomaly in on itself. If it worked, the tiers in space-time would heal themselves. If it failed, the Prometheus and likely much of the solar system would be destroyed. Beginning approach sequence, Jack announced. The ship's engines flared as it moved toward the first anomaly. From safe distances, human and Council vessels watched in tense silence. Dr. Morgan monitored the readings from her lab, while Bryn did the same from the Council flagship. Anomaly 1 in range, Jack reported. Initiating first collision pulse. The Prometheus shuddered as its drive activated. Instead of tearing space, it now worked to reshape it, creating a bridge between two anomalies. The ship itself served as the needle, threading space-time back together. It's working, Bryn reported, wonder in her voice. The anomalies are being drawn together. On the Prometheus, warning alarms blared as the ship's hull strained against forces it was never designed to withstand. Structural integrity at 60%, Jack's first officer reported. We can't take much more of this. We only need to hold together long enough to reach the third anomaly, Jack said, his hands steady on the controls. Prepare for final approach. As the Prometheus pushed forward, the merged anomalies grew unstable. Energy discharges lashed out, striking the ship repeatedly. Shields failing, the first officer called out. Drive containment is critical. Jack locked eyes with Trell on the view screen. If this works, remember our agreement. Earth joins the Council as an equal, not a subject. Trell nodded solemnly. You have my word, Captain. Initiating final collision pulse, Jack announced. May we meet again in better circumstances, Counselor. The connection cut off as the Prometheus plunged into the heart of the combined anomaly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a blinding flash of light erupted, so bright that observers had to shield their eyes even through filtered view screens. When the light faded, the anomalies were gone. So was the Prometheus. 6 months later, representatives from Earth stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. Admiral Peters and Dr. Morgan faced the assembled aliens with a mixture of pride and humility. The sacrifice of Captain Reed and the crew of the Prometheus will not be forgotten, Trell said, addressing the gathering. Their actions saved not only Earth, but potentially many worlds beyond. Dr. Morgan stepped forward, carrying a data crystal. We have modified our collision drive technology as agreed. The new design incorporates elements of both our approach and council methods. Bryn, who had worked closely with Dr. Morgan during the reconstruction, nodded with approval. The human innovation combined with our established safety protocols has created something neither of us could have achieved alone. Admiral Peters spoke next. Earth requests formal recognition as a member of the Galactic Council as per our agreement. There was murmuring among the alien representatives, but Trell raised a hand for silence. The Council recognizes that in crisis we find opportunity, he said. The humans have demonstrated both great risk-taking and great sacrifice. These are qualities the Council has perhaps forgotten over our long years of stability. The vote was taken. Earth was accepted as the 38th member of the Galactic Council. As the ceremony concluded, Dr. Morgan stood at a viewport looking out at the stars. They seemed different now, closer, yet more mysterious than ever. "We made it, Jack," she whispered. "Your crazy plan worked." Behind her, Bryn approached quietly. "Our sensors detected something unusual yesterday," the alien scientist said. "A faint signal using Prometheus communication protocols." Dr. Morgan turned, her eyes wide. "From where?" "A system about 30 light-years from here. It was gone before we could trace it precisely." Dr. Morgan smiled. In her pocket, she carried the plans for a new ship, one that would incorporate the best of human innovation and alien wisdom. The stars were still waiting, and humans would not stop reaching for them.